I'm just going to run through the specification of the XT4. When it was first announced, I thought the XT4 looked like a really good camera to take a look at. I own the XT1, did a wedding season with it, just one season. Survived the season with it, but to be honest with you, it wasn't the camera I thought it was going to be. So I sold the whole X system. Now, we all knew that that was the early days for Fujifilm, and they've come back now. I've missed out the XT2, XT3. I know that people love the XT3, and I can see that's a very good camera. But this is the one that really interests me, because what I love about the X system, it's a brand new system, but they also were looking to the past. So they were looking to the mechanical side of using shutter speed dials and this sort of thing. So I thought that was a good thing. What I found when I got to the weddings was it actually slowed you down quite a bit. So I'm not really looking at this as a wedding photography camera. You appreciate I'm moving away from weddings slightly now towards other things, but the XT4 looks like one of the best all-round cameras you can get for about £1,500. I think there's so much in this camera, and I will go through the whole spec in a minute. Let's start with stabilization. They put in-body stabilization in there now. So that is 6 stops, 6.5 stops, which is just hard to believe, to be honest with you. But what that does for their X range is it opens up, and I appreciate, you know, I'm going to, let's go technical, at a typical set, at a typical set, at a typical set, at a typical set, at a typical setup for someone with prime lenses. So I would personally go for a 16mm 2.8. 1.4 is a heavy lens. I do like that lens, but say, let's just say go 16mm 2.8. That's the equivalent of a 24mm in full frame world. So that looks like a good lens. Now we've got 5-axis image stabilization, 6.5 stops. So wide angle lenses, you don't actually need stabilization, but it just shows you that's how they're getting that out of that is unbelievable. Now, as you go up, then maybe you decide you want to put in a portrait lens. So say you did go for the 56mm 1.2. I might do that. That's equivalent of an 85mm. You might go for the f2. 6.5 stops there. Now that's where it can get interesting, because some people get very shaky when they get to this area. I appreciate you've got the large aperture there, so you can select a faster shutter speed. But this is helping you. And one of the things I find from looking at other people's images from training, people are obsessed with their images being really good, but when you actually zoom in and have a look, they've moved quite a lot, and you've got shake. So shake and movement of your body and hand holding cameras is one of the biggest problems, and they're addressing this slowly, I have to say, because this technology has been there for a while. So Fuji have done a good job there. This interests me, the 90mm f2. So I might go wide, and then I might go long, and then you've got 6 stops. So well done for bringing that sort of technology into this camera. That's really important for me. Also for video, if you're hand holding, the micro jitters they call it, but these slight movements is just trying to hand hold. You're then using a gimbal. I've seen some great results with this sensor stabilization already. I mean, you have to be careful with it. It's worth coming over to this website, and it's a pretty incredible website, to be honest, really good. And you've got some people actually using the equipment. So come on over. I'll put a link in the description to this website, the Fujifilm one. So as you start pulling your system together, you know, that's a massive bonus. So over the XT3, I wouldn't even touch one, to be honest. That's a great improvement. As a professional photographer, that helps me come back with a higher hit rate, so that's really important. Let's move on to the actual spec. Now, for £1,500, what they've actually put in this camera, it is pretty much everything you'll ever need. I don't see, it does interest me to see where they'll get over the next few years with these cameras, because how far can you go? Let's just go through XT4. So it's a 26.1 million pixels. Now, I know we're talking 50 and whatever full frame, but 20, they know that that is the sweet spot, and you'll find a lot of the manufacturers will be coming to this area. So, you know, it's a matter of producing a sensor, you know, system that doesn't produce too much noise, and you've got enough pixels so it can produce large prints. So if you gave this file to a printer, as in somebody that does it for a living, I can assure you they would tell you that that is more than enough. So they've done well there. The sensor size 23.5 by 15.6, APS-C and full frame. As far as quality, this word quality, you know, I discuss this in a lot of these videos. There's very little difference in quality as such between full frame and this size sensor. When you go down in sensor sizes, then noise does become a problem still. But to be honest with you, these two sensors are so close anyway, the full frame and the APS-C, that doesn't really worry me that much. I appreciate people going about bokeh and background blur and all these sorts of things, but you only have to change your focal length slightly longer to get a similar effect. So it's not really a massive deal for me. I use full frame sensors. You know, I use the 5D Classic, and I've got a lot of videos about that. But I'm really looking at this camera as the best all-round stills and video camera, and maybe what I'm going to consider for myself, to be honest with you. It's a camera that I haven't really looked at because I've been too busy looking at Canon stuff recently. But for value for money, 1500, it's quite incredible what you're getting. So they know what they're doing with their sensors. We don't really know where these sensors come from. 1 minute, are they Sony? Are they Fuji? I don't know. But the bottom line is they're good sensors, and that's all we need. Got sensor cleaning, which if it works, it works. If it's good, that's always got to be good. But, you know, trying to keep muck off your sensors the main thing. Storage, they've got that absolutely fine. And the fact they've got 2 SD card slots is brilliant. So we've got the key things. The XT1 missed for me, you know, with these little things. So 2 cards, brilliant. I appreciate the XT3 had that, and you can use all these different cards, which is what you want. So for video, they're supporting videographers really well with this camera now. They've brought both sides up, and you're paying 50. I always imagine really with a camera, you're paying £750 for a stills camera, £750 for a video camera. Can't be bad. But as long as the video has come up, and you know, I've talked to a lot of people into video, and they are really looking at this camera, and they appreciate where Fuji are going with it. So yeah, really good. You got a 14-bit RAW, and I didn't like this RAW at the beginning, bringing it into Lightroom, but I'm sure that's absolutely fine now. Comment below if you're having problems with RAW files in Lightroom. I don't know. Do we have to keep using Lightroom? I mean, they've got their own software anyway, Fuji, and is it free? So we'll do that debate at a different stage. I'm looking at how to come away from Adobe products at the moment. I don't particularly want to be paying £20 per month, or £10 as it is now, but it'll end up 20 for the rest of my life, because that adds up. And I think you'll find there's going to be a lot of software coming through, and there is at the moment. So from file format point of view, I would always try and use the software that comes with the camera. If it's free, if it doesn't cost too much, whatever comes with the camera obviously is being developed by the company. I found this a lot with using the 5D Classic early on, is the image you could get out of the Canon software compared to Lightroom was better, and the image straight out of the camera was better. And just saying about this JPEG coming out of the camera, now the XT1, the JPEG, and Fuji are known for this, is incredible straight out the camera. The 5D Classic is great out the camera. So I'm moving towards well, always have moved this way, and this is the general trend, obviously for manual mode, but trying to get the file right in the camera, and Fuji do that. So I'm more than happy to use their JPEGs. You've got actual good settings on these cameras now, so you can adjust the highlight end and the shadows. So yeah, really good. Probably something that I would have put it in here, they haven't. You know, they've got 3x2, fair enough. 16:9, great for movie. If you get into that movie shape, and I use that on my Samsung a lot. Is in fact I try and shoot stills in 16:9, because then when I'm making videos, I'm in the 16:9 world. So you get used to composing in 16:9. And 3x2 is a bit of a strange one now. Obviously, cropping square, brilliant. It's got 4160 square. I mean, that's a great file if you're into you love shooting square and black and white. Absolutely wonderful camera for that look. So, but one that, you know, they've missed out 4x3 and 5x4 shapes. There's no reason. I haven't been in the menu. I haven't got the camera. Getting to a camera shop at the moment is pretty hard. They're none open because of lockdown. So that's why I've gone into specs. But I'm presuming that they're just offering 3x2, 16:9, and square, 1x1. So I would have 4x3 and 5x4. There's no reason why they couldn't go on here and offer that straight out the camera. Because if you're offering the JPEG straight out the camera, that's amazing. Why can't we offer unlimited shapes coming out of the camera? So that's something I would look at, and I know Fuji do listen. We want to get this straight out onto a standard print sizes, don't we? So, you know, let's take a look at that. Fujifilm, let's have a look. Standard output, so you've got your auto modes, so you can physically set shutter speed, aperture, and let the ISO look after itself up to 12,800, which is fine for me. If you go beyond that, and you'll know who you are and you'll need that, but for me that's fine. Third of a step increments with your stops, so nice fine control there through the auto. That's good. You've got an extended range up to ridiculous numbers, which I expect is very noisy. Comment below if you've used this camera. Is it noisy? Tell us the threshold. But yeah, so you've got some good sensitivity on this camera if you want to use it in the evening. I would suggest 12,800. I always look at what the standard is, so standard, and then I look at the range, and I know that this is probably a good 6,400 camera from looking at that, but I haven't used it, so I can't tell you. But let's have a look at, if you use metering, not really into metering, but you've got 256 zones now. If you can't get the image spot on with these metering modes, then you have to ask yourself, why are you using aperture priority, shutter priority? As you know, the only one I use is manual mode, and that's the end of it. So I don't use any metering at all, so this is irrelevant to me, but it won't be irrelevant to you. I'm probably in the 3% just purely manual mode now. So, you know, good metering. It's got face detection on it, and it's looking at the face. You know, I can't, to me, I still don't get this, to be honest, because when you're using video, the brightening and darkening of your video, so your phone professionals don't do that. They fix their aperture, you know, they fix their shutter speed, and they fix their ISO. So, and then photography wise, I always get this question, yeah, it's all right you working in manual mode, but what about I'm into bird photography and it's flying through the sky and I need my camera to adjust? Well, take a look at your images after you've done that, and you'll find it's not adjusting by much. And if it is, then maybe you should be fixing your exposure and then just tweaking it in Lightroom. So we won't have, that's obviously a passion of mine, is getting people from off these and getting them onto manual mode. But you've got everything you need there. And compensation, if you are in aperture priority, you've got a compensation dial of plus 5 EV either side, plus or minus 5 stops either side of your exposure is really useful. So well done for doing that, Fuji. Movie mode, I noticed that it's -2 +2, so yeah, people might not be too happy about that one. That might be a bit of a shock when you get the camera, but until I get it in my hands I won't really know what's going on there. But I don't really understand why you'll get 5 either side for stills and then only 2 either side. But as I say, we're mainly working in manual mode. Try and push yourself towards that. I've obviously got the Master in Manual Mode course that I promised a few months ago. I'm actually teaching that, and have for 5 years. I've been teaching that. But we're doing the online course now, which is basically you talking to me over Zoom and me doing it online and sending you work and doing it online. So really, if you want to push your photography forward, that is a very good way to do it. And your videography. Most videographers will not get involved in letting the camera do the work for them unless they're vlogging and this sort of thing. So the image stabilization we've talked about, 5 axis, 6.5 stops depending on which lens. You've got a digital one there as well. So you've got a movie digital, which will crop in a little bit, but you know that will help as well. So they really are pushing towards this world that I do understand what they're trying to do. Is photographers really exist, and will videographers really exist? There's going to be this blending of, you know, there has been for a while. The last 10 years has been about, you know, if you're a journalist, can you take the photos at the same time? Can you do short clips for social media? So this bringing together, I'm not saying it's a good thing, because I still believe if you specialize in doing stills, that's what you get really good at, and if you're a videographer, etc. But the bottom line is that's what's happening, and the camera manufacturers are thinking, let's make a camera that we can sell for 1,500 that does 2 things, rather than selling a stills camera for 750. So they're being quite clever. The technologies go together. So always bear in mind, you don't have to spend this money on a stills camera to get extremely good results. I use a 5D that £350 get a nice one. But the reason this is great value for money, in my opinion, is you've got an amazing video camera, and you've got an amazing stills camera, and you've also got a stills camera that is very nice to use because it's very mechanical. So they're ticking so many boxes with this camera. I should think they're going to pull a lot of people over from Canon, definitely, and Nikon over to this camera. So this is a real breakthrough for Fujifilm, I think. I think they're going to do really well with it. So you've got mechanical shutter, 0.008 of a second, which is great. And then you've got your electronic shutter, 1/32,000th of a second. So great. So bear in mind, with this electronic shutter, you can't use fill-in flash, that sort of thing. You've got to have your focal plane shutter. Let's just talk about focal plane shutters for 2 seconds. So I think this needs to go. I need the focal plane shutter needs to be abandoned now. We need to find a way of making flash work. So my call out to Fujifilm and everyone else is, why are we still using a mechanical shutter? We've got an amazing electronic shutter here. You just got to work out to get flash. Now I appreciate that's physics and that's difficult, but this needs to go. This holds so many things back. We used to use leaf shutters. Leaf shutters were so popular. Hasselblad's, you know, pro cameras, leaf shutters, and so we could use flash synchronization at all shutter speeds. So yeah, that'll be the next big breakthrough, when they say mirrorless was the big breakthrough. Let's get rid of the mirror. To me, that's, you know, not massive, to be honest. This camera is about the same size now. They've made it heavier, by the way. It's getting on towards the same size as a 5D Mark 1. So not quite, but getting there. And so yeah, I think the shutter's got to go, this focal plane shutter that we sort of love to hate, really. And that will be a major breakthrough, and we can go all electronic. Flash is going to hold that back. Maybe LED lighting will push things forward as it gets more accurate. I'm pretty much using LED lighting all the time now, which is great, and moved away from flash slightly. So there's a place for flash. I appreciate that with stop in motion. But yeah, so you've got the electronic shutter, 32 thousandths. There you go. Just have a, there's so many specs, obviously. I'm just reading through this now. Let's carry on going. Now, continuous shooting with this electronic shutter, you've got 30 frames a second, which, so if you think you can go at 30 frames a second, which is basically video, which is incredible, and at the same time you're at 1/32 thousandth of a second, tying those two together. Let's have a look. Yeah. If you can't get the photo with that, I don't think you're ever going to get it, to be honest with you. You're going to be in a position where even with portraits, you are literally videoing. So this is interesting, and these are the breakthroughs that I've been waiting for. If you're wondering why I'm not changed from the 5D Classic, it's because there hasn't been enough changes. These are big changes now. This is going to make a difference to your day-to-day workflow as a professional photographer. You can go out with 30 frames a second on electronic shutter. Hopefully it's not bendy, as in it's got well, artifacts and things that happen that we don't like about electronic shutters, but they're improving that all the time. Complete silence as well. So at a wedding, I used in complete silence the electronic shutters, and I thought it was brilliant. So this is really good breakthroughs. So read through that spec. I'm not going to go through the whole lot, but the bottom line is they've got absolutely sorted for continuous shooting. You've got no problems at all. So bracketing, you've got your normal bracketing, third of a stop. Yeah, +3, -3. So yeah, your bracketing's all sorted. Won't go too much into that. You've got dynamic range bracketing, which is quite good actually. Having dynamic range bracketing, 100%, 200%, 400%. So this is again for landscape photographers, being able to go out there and being able to do that is really useful. I'm just looking for workflows that save so much time. That's the key with what I'm doing. So it may be different for you. When it's a hobby, you might want it to take up a lot of time. That's the important part. Is it takes a day, takes 3 days, but I'm looking at it from the point of view of saving time. So always look at that as with all these specs is what you're trying to achieve. Got the normal single AF, continuous AF, which is fine. So low light performance, -3 EV, -6 EV, 35mm, 1.4 attach. Well, that just is really, what is it saying? Comment below. I think that what that's saying really is -6 EV, as long as you've got a really fast lens. Well, that's obvious. But let's look at that. -3 EV is fine anyway. So low light performance with the focusing, that's what you want. When you get in this sort of focusing where you walk into a bar, hotel like I do, and you've got this contrast detection AF, and this is a problem with the XT1, and it's just not focusing. And then you go back to your SLR 5D Mark I, and actually does it with its eyes closed, and it's a £300 camera. So this is one of the areas that I think needed to improve, and it looks like they're getting there. So I wouldn't know until I actually go out with it, but again, comment below if you've got an XT3 and you've used it. How is it in low light when you're trying to focus on things? And focusing is massive in what I do. You're going to have so much confidence in the camera, and that's why the XT1 went, is because it wasn't good enough. So yeah, white balance, you can do a lot with your white balance there. The bottom line is they are pretty good, Fujifilm, with white balance. Anything to do with color and to do with the image as such, I always found them really good. Where they fell down was the autofocus. That was the main thing, to be honest. But we won't go into that now. I'm not going negative. That's the past. That's a long time ago. This is a new camera. There you go, interval timer. They are literally making this into the camera to buy. So if you're into your time lapse, brilliant. It's got it in there. Sony, they took it out of some of their cameras. So yeah, this is a great all-round camera. So you've got first curtain, second curtain sync, which is great. And you've got everything you want with flash in there. The only one I use is this one, which is just manual flash, but manual mode, manual flash, that's all I need. But take a look at that, it's got everything you need. Got the hot shoe viewfinder. So the viewfinder hasn't changed, I don't think, from the XT3, I believe. 100%. It's not the best viewfinder on the market, it's not the worst. I'll bore you with this. So viewfinders to me, this is if this camera had just an optical viewfinder, it's the perfect camera to me. I love optical viewfinders and I don't like electronic ones. Many different reasons. It's something that you've got to look at as a personal decision. But the bottom line is, with electronic viewfinders, they seem to add contrast. So that's the first thing. So you're viewing the scene, you look with your own eyes, obviously, not through the viewfinder, and it looks decent contrast. You look through the viewfinder, adds contrast. So adding contrast is a bad thing. When you look through an optical viewfinder, if it's a good one, go and have a look through the Canon 5D Mark IV viewfinder. That would be a good idea. It's even better than the Nikon D850, I have to say. Put them next to each other. When the shop's open, go and have a look. And then instantly go across to one of these viewfinders, the electronic ones. This is I know it's the obvious mirrorless reason for having it, apparently, thing, but I see this as a massive negative. So the viewfinders aren't good enough. I don't see how they ever will be. I've never looked through one yet that I thought, that's amazing, I'm going to switch tomorrow. It's always a disappointment from the M50 all the way through. So I won't know till I look through it. Anybody that owns an electronic viewfinder will absolutely talk you down and tell you you're completely wrong. But the other thing is, walking backwards down an aisle, looking through an electronic viewfinder, you nearly fall over. Because you're not visually looking through a lens and your body is in the moment, and it's hard to describe. Go and try it. You become disorientated, and that is a big problem with this setup. I appreciate not all photography is wedding photography. It's what I've been doing, and that's where I come from with talking to you about this. Straightforward portraits. You'll see the face detection come on in the viewfinder. Brilliant. You're shooting in black and white, gives you an idea of the black and white. Great. You take the image and it looks different to what you see through the viewfinder because it's contrasty. So really be careful about this one. Do you actually want an electronic viewfinder? Because the viewfinder is the key, you know, focusing, viewfinder, working very quickly. That's the key. So I won't go too much more into that. They're doing the best they can, but is it good enough? I won't know until I try it, and hopefully we'll get to try it in a couple of months when everything settles down. So the monitors are a different thing. This good monitor, when you look on the back of the monitors, it always seems to be good. So the viewfinder usually not great, and their monitor absolutely fine. So from a video point of view, 3:2 aspect ratio there. So your 16:9 crops will go on there, so that all looks fine. I'm not going to go too much into movies, video. The bottom line is, if you come to this website, go and listen to some of the videographers talking about this, and they're delighted with it, what footage you've put in. That spec list there, I'm not a videographer. I just make random, very amateurish little videos like this one. But the bottom line is, they've put everything that they need in there, and just go and listen. Everything they want. I haven't heard a bad word said against this camera yet. So have a look at that. So wireless, you've got wireless in there, which is brilliant. 802.11b. No Wi-Fi 6, I don't think. That's not interesting. Bluetooth, USB-C, HDMI. I won't go too much into this. It's the general main specs we're looking at. Now this is another main spec that interests me. is the fact that they get heavier and heavier. So I'm really trying to be positive about this camera, and I am very positive about it. But so we started off with, let's make cameras that are lighter weight, called mirrorless cameras. And then slowly, all the manufacturers are making them heavier because they're realizing that the batteries aren't good enough. So they've had to put a heavier battery in this because everyone complains so much about the XT3 battery. The XT1 battery, I was taking 3 or 4 batteries to the wedding, absolutely, no good at all. So I used to be able to do a whole wedding just by putting a battery in a 5D Mark I. So yeah, so now we've got a position where we've got full frame mirrorless cameras with reasonably small bodies, except for the R, which is still quite a big camera. And then we're putting on extremely big lenses because we've got a full frame sensor. And then we think, right, let's reduce the size of the sensor and get a smaller body. Great. So we look at the Olympus system, nice small bodies. That's a really good small mirrorless system. And then we can have small lenses. Great. And then Fuji have gone with the APS-C. And that's a good sweet spot. And you look at the M50, nice tiny little camera and then tiny little lenses. And then they're increasing the size of the body physically and the weight of it. So we're going back the other way again. So bear that in mind when you're looking at these cameras. Go and have a look. If you don't like the mirrorless, if you don't like the viewfinders, ask yourself, why are you buying it? Because there's some very nice small SLRs out there. I mean, the 250D, everyone would say that's a bottom end mirrorless, bottom end DSLR is an excellent little camera. That's all I can say. So, and you're paying what, 500 quid, aren't you? £400-500. So just bear that in mind. Don't follow the crowd. I never do. Always look at things from the point of view of what you need the camera to do, and start breaking it down. I can assure you that the average person does not need this spec. But for £1,500, for somebody that does video at a high professional level and does stills photography professionally, £1,500, dual cards, in-body stabilization, a screen, which I didn't talk about yet, which is a massive thing, a screen that you can put in any position. Now people say they're obsessed with it flipping forward so you can do selfies, fair enough, and selfie videos and vloggers, because it saves you having to employ a videographer. But the fact that screen can get in any position for overhead photography, low level video, whatever, so the screen being able to move is brilliant. 5D Mark IV, screen fixed. So the 5D Mark, what are we on, the 6D Mark II, they put the screen on, but they didn't put 2 cards in. So this is the game we've got, is what is the perfect camera. And that's why I don't look at lots of other cameras. This one has stood out as having everything you possibly need in a camera to me. Comment below, because there will be people that have got this camera, and if you know about it, or the XT3, please comment below and tell me what you think. If you're going to move over to this camera, we can get a discussion below. It'll help people, and I think you've done really well, Fujifilm. I think you've brought forward the camera of 2020, to be honest with you. I think the R5 stroke R6, or are they here yet, or are they going to come? I mean, it's not their fault because of the situation, but I think Fujifilm have got in there at the right price point, and I think the R5 is going to be too expensive. Imagine if you're doing this for a living like I do, you need 2 bodies, 2 £1,500 bodies, £3,000 startup business, you're well away. If you've got to spend 2 times 2,500, you're at 5,000, then it starts to get, too expensive. So well done, Fujifilm. I look forward to having a look at this camera. Shop's open soon, hopefully. And subscribe, that really helps the channel. Thumbs up if you like this video. I know it's quite a long one, but I really wanted you to just look at the specs first. when you're going to go this far with a camera, you're going to spend a lot of money. Okay, I'll see you again soon.